Well, good morning, DirtFish rally friends, and welcome to a rather sombre day 2 of the Arctic Rally Finland. We've woken up this morning, the service park has woken up to the terribly sad news of the passing of Finnish rally legend, former world rally champion, Hannu Mikkola. David, you know, what can we say? It was shocking overnight news, but Mikkola was an absolute legend of rallying. There's no question about that.
Oh, he was, Colin. You know, we talked a lot already this morning about him, and today is a day to wear a black armband if you're a rally fan. You know, for me, I grew up and he was one of those mysterious names. You know, just I read every week's motoring news to see what Hannu Mikkola had been doing, and he was an absolute legend. And it is a very, very sad day today.
It was a heck of a career he had, wasn't it? He put an awful lot of work into becoming World Rally Champion. It came very late in his career, but my goodness me, he drove some great cars, he entertained people, he won rallies, and he got his just desserts in 1983, didn't he, with that
He did, but win. You know, he was a different generation. You know, we're now used to look at this rally. You know, we've got Oliver Solberg 19, Kalle Rovanperä 20. It didn't really happen.
You had to earn it, didn't you?
You absolutely did. And, you know, as well, you know, his career would have been interrupted by national service for a while as well. Started out in a Volvo, moved into Ford, got a long-term contract with Ford, and was just, you know, an absolute icon. You know, won the 1,000 Lakes 7 times, and just great memories in that Ford. And, you know, 79 when Bjorn Valdegaard won the first World Championship. It's easy to forget that Hannu was only a point behind him, and I think he had an accident on the 1,000 Lakes that year. Could have been world champion easily in the first year that the driver's title was there. But yeah, I mean, great, just a huge name in Finland. We know that he'd been poorly a while ago. Obviously moved out to America and lived, I think, in California. But yeah, I hadn't spoken to him for a couple of years. But this was the other thing, you know, that he had an incredible recollection of stuff. You know, he could always bring back incredible detail, and there are a number of stories that I've researched with him and talked about. And I think when we were at BGM Sport with that fabulous Audi Quattro behind us, you know,
Mikkola winning car, wasn't it?
Yeah, he won the Manta Rally in 85, and I think I talked about the story from that 85,000 Lakes that followed, where he did Oinopoja stage, and he'd had a broken spring, so he had 3 titanium springs on the car and 1 steel spring, which would seriously affect the handling of the car. And he set a stage record in Oinopoja, and said after that it was the only time in his career that he had that feeling of being a fighter pilot, being out of his body. You know, and to drive a car like that down a road like that was just incredible. And you know, there's a few drivers that will always forever stand out as absolute greats. And it's, you know, we now have, you know, Sebastian Loeb is a 9-time champion, Sebastian Ogier is a 7-time champion, and you kind of look and you think, well, how come Hannu Mikkola only won 1 championship? He was there in an era where you had Vatten and Valdegaard, you know, all of these incredible names, and the competition was so tight. But yeah, it's
terribly sad news. And obviously, your DirtFish.com will be paying their respects to Hannu Mikkola throughout the coming week. So all of our thoughts are with the Mikkola family from everyone here at DirtFish.com. A sad day indeed. So, David, obviously, day 2 is upon us here at the Arctic Rally. Shall we just go through the overnight standings for anyone who perhaps is just joining us? Let's go through the overnight standings then here. After 2 stages, Oyt Tanak, the man who is in the lead. Craig Breen in second, 16.2 behind Kalle Rovanperä. The first of the Finns is third. Terry Neuville is fourth. Elvin Evans, 32 seconds off the lead, is in 5th place. Sunanen is 6th. Katsuta-san is 7th. Oliver Solberg in 8th place. Sebastian Ogier finding himself nearly 50 seconds off the lead down in 9th. And Gus Greensmith rounds out our top 10. Don't forget reverse order today. That's why yesterday's 2 stages were so important, David, because today's stages are going to be challenging. 144 kilometres ahead of us, just under 100 miles. Today's the day. Today is the day, really. I think Jari Matti said it this morning. Luke is really going to tell us whether or not
Mm.
the Toyotas can catch the flying Tanak.
Absolutely, and you know, a lot of it as well will depend on what the surface does, doesn't it? Even because you mentioned there that Ogier, you know, his place on the road is not great today. There's not really enough drivers ahead of him to make a massive difference, and drivers perhaps that aren't going to be sort of super aggressive in the way they attack the line and move any loose snow off the surface in the way that he would want to. So no, it's a huge day, and straight into Mustalampi, the very famous stage where the swamp is, and you know, not an easy place to go and start. It's a real mix, isn't it, of some technical sections and some quick sections. Nothing quite as quick as that long straight that we saw in the first stage yesterday. That real speed is coming in the second stage, where, you know, all of the drivers have talked to this huge long section for sort of 7 or 8 miles in the middle, where it's pretty much top gear all the way.
You're just lifting occasionally, aren't you? Down gear once or twice, but that's more or less it.
All, you know, big bravery stuff through there. But no, it's if Ogier, you know, he is going to have to hang it all out there.
I think he is. He's got a job to do. He's got a couple of drivers that are within touching distance, but to get much further up the leaderboard, he will probably rely on a little bit of attrition. David, I was going to say, by the way, folks, the opening stage this morning, if you want to have a look at our preview of that, because we did do a reasonably detailed preview, it is on our YouTube channel, so have a look at that and you'll get a good feel for what to expect. David, what we saw yesterday, we saw temperatures above freezing, and when we came back into town last night, it was beginning to look a bit messy. It was all a bit wet and slushy. The stages held up well yesterday. We're staying below freezing, not an awful lot below freezing, but we are staying below freezing, the forecast is telling me, for the day today. I thought yesterday the stages held up well. You looked sceptical. They got messy. They got a little messy.
I'm not sure they got messy, but we saw, you know, in places the drivers are talking about 80% gravel. You know, a lot of gravel had come through, and the reason for that was, you know, they'd used that road on the Finnish Championship round, the Arctic Lapland Rally. These stages, from what I can remember, and it was actually 3 or 4 days ago now that we drove them.
It's a long time for a man of your age.
They were good. You know, there was more ice in there, wasn't there? There was a better ice base.
Yeah.
So quite possibly these stages will be in better condition, offering better grip. Temperature, though, is not going to be dissimilar to yesterday.
No, it's going to stay below freezing. It is going to stay below freezing.
It?
Yes, it is. -2, -3 degrees.
All day.
And then it's going to snow this evening as well. That could be interesting. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the snow.
Could you just remind us how last night's snow went?
There was a blizzard for a minute
30
or two.
seconds?
Yeah, a minute or two. But it did snow. It did snow yesterday. Interesting day for sure ahead of us, David. You know, who do we expect to really, as you said earlier on, hang it all out today? You've already mentioned you think Ogier might, but who do you expect? Do you think Rovanperä in third place? Is he, you know, Toyota desperate to win, desperate to keep that home win record?
You know, it's almost a tricky position for Rovanperä now, because, you know, he's right up there with Elvin, you know, as the first 2 Toyotas. And sorry, Takamoto as well is of course right there as well, not far there. But this was my kind of thinking with Kalle coming into this event, was that he perhaps would be the third Toyota. No, we knew he was going to win. Sorry, hang on a sec. We knew he was going to be pushing for the win. He is not a driver, I don't think, that needs to be looking towards the championship. Of course, if he's in the ballpark, he's going to push for the championship. Of course he is. But is it his number one priority this year? I don't really think it is. You know, he's got a huge amount of years ahead of him. I would imagine that Kalle, and talking to him, you know, he did say that there are certain rallies, pinpoint target rallies that he's looking at. This is going to be one of them. It's going to be one of them. And so that will affect his approach. He's going to push all out for the win. Whereas, you know, we talked so much about this with Sweden last year, where, Kalle Rovanperä beat Sebastian Ogier on the power stage. Yeah, of course he did, because Ogier wasn't going to risk everything because he had a championship to win. Kalle had nothing to lose. I think there will be a different approach. Right. So in answer to your question, Kalle will push like hell.
He's the one
but
to
also,
watch.
You know, Tanak is in the best place on the road, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that car works on fast gravel now.
It works really, really well. So, folks, I do totally agree with David. I think maybe as they leave Service Park this morning that Jari-Matti Latvala will have taken the blinkers, the reins off, if you like, Kalle Rovanperä. He's got Elfyn Evans, who will do an Elfyn Evans-like job, and if he finds the pace, great. He'll make time up, he'll make positions up potentially. But Rovanperä, the one to watch.
That is a little bit dismissive of Elfyn, because Elfyn was in the second worst place on the road yesterday.
Well, I was saying, if he finds the pace, and he will, and there's no question, if he finds the pace that he found in Sweden.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Elfyn will do what comes. He'll get into that opening stage, and he'll do what he always does. He'll assess how comfortable he feels. Now, if we look back to Sweden last year, we look back to his gravel performance, the suggestion would be clearly that he'll find a good pace, and he may well start to challenge. But what he won't do is he won't go out with a mindset saying, I have to push, I have to push, I have to make up 30 seconds today. He will wait till he gets into that stage, see how the car's performing, see how his feeling is in the car.
I don't think there's any driver really in this top 10. Maybe Oliver Solberg. Certainly Oliver Solberg would not have imagined waking up this morning with a 3.9 second lead over seven times Sebastian Ogier. So, but you know, I think pretty much every driver in there is going to be pushing hard. You know,
no question.
And this is the point: is today is the meat of the event. You know, it's the only full day. Tomorrow we're into just one stage repeated. This is a long day. It's a good opportunity, but also we need to. For me, would they all take 6 tyres?
It's a long loop.
You've got to.
Through, I think you've got to. David, I'm going to set you a challenge just as we wind up this morning preview of the day. I'm going to set you a challenge. We have to come up with another word, because when we talk about gravel and the gravel here, gravel in GP, gravel here that comes through, it's not the same. It's frozen ground. It's not permafrost. We've had that made very clear to us. But we have
frozen
to come up,
stones.
Frozen stones. That'll do for just
frozen stones. Folks, and actually, just to come back to where we started, Cole, that's just reminded me of one of my best memories of actually being on an event and watching as a real youngster was the 1988 RAC Rally, where Hannu Mikkola was winning in a Mazda 323, and the Mazda 323 was a real underdog of a car. It was a 1600cc car against a Lancia. Marco Alem was second in a factory Martini Integrale. And I can't remember which. It was a stage in Yorkshire, and I'm sure Hannu was leading by more than a minute. And I was sure he was going to win this event. And I'd waited so long to remember and to have a sort of memory of Mikkola winning an event. And he came over a crest, and I can remember seeing the BBC Top Gear report, and he was caught, the sun was right in his eyes, and he went off the road, crashed, and didn't come back and lost the event. And it's one of those, as we were talking then, just about Hannu in the beginning, it came back to me, and just, what an amazing, that was the days when the RAC Rally went on for 4 or 5 days, and it was Langdale or somewhere like that he went off the road, and it was just an absolute heartbreaker, because that was the moment that he was finally going to win and crashed. But great.
What a lovely legacy, though, isn't it? To be able to, for his family to be able to look back and say, Hannu created memories for generations of people, yourself, obviously,
100%,
and inspired generations of people. That's a lovely legacy for anyone.
You look at the Mark II escorts that people like Mikko Hirvonen build. They build them in the Eaton Yale livery because of one man, and a true giant of the sport.
Folks, we will go out into the stages today, and we will clearly follow what goes on the Arctic Rally Finland, but we will, I think for today, we will certainly be remembering when we're out in those stages, Hannu Mikkola and his remarkable achievements in the World Rally Championship. Stay with us, as I say, at DirtFish.com for all the action, all the updates, all the news as it unfolds from Rovaniemi and the Arctic Rally Finland.